Kia ora. The House is resumed for the extended sitting. Call on Government Order of the Day number 8.
Rangitāne o Manawatu Claims Settlement Bill, third reading.
Mr Speaker.
The Honourable Christopher Finlayson.
Mr Speaker, I move that the Rangitāne o Manawatu Claims Settlement Bill be now read a third time. Mr Speaker, today we're here to consider, to debate and address matters of great importance. Today is a great day for our nation and for Rangitāne o Manawatu. Very few things can be more defining than a third reading of settlement legislation, as we found last week when we debated the third reading of 3 settlement bills. I can see a number of visitors in the gallery who've led the journey to settlement for Rangitāne o Manawatu. This iwi has had to overcome very many obstacles to get to this point, and I am so very, very pleased to see you here today. After so many years of negotiations with the Crown, I'm pleased that the people of Rangitāne o Manawatu do not have to wait any longer to see the third reading of their bill. So I extend a warm welcome to members of Rangitāne o Manawatu who have travelled from the Manawatu area and further afield to be here in Parliament today to listen to this, the third reading of their legislation. I acknowledge, as I always do and always should, those negotiators who passed away during the course of the negotiations, namely Rangi Haruru Fitzgerald, Tāne Nuarangi Te Aweawe, Kura Tarangi Baker, Ruth Harris, and Karaira Raina Tate. To those of you who have worked so hard to make today possible, I offer my most sincere thanks. Mr Speaker, this settlement represents the culmination of several generations of work, beginning with the late, great Ruth Harris, who lodged the Y182 claim with the Tribunal in 1990, and whose hard work and vision has been carried on by her daughter Danielle Harris, by Morris Takarangi, and by a number of other fine people. As I said during the second reading, the commitment, dedication and high standards of the negotiators is truly outstanding. This day has been a long time coming for Rangitāne o Manawatu. As I said, they've faced many challenges since the 1990s, including a long pause in negotiations. I want to acknowledge other members of Rangitāne who contributed to the claims process who have passed on, including Inia Tarangi, Winnie Smith, Lauren Fitzgerald and Yvonne Marshall. Since signing the terms of negotiation in 1998, and I repeat that, 1998, Rangitāne o Manawatu have dealt with 5 ministers for treaty settlements and countless Crown officials. The Crown recognises the long and heavy burden Rangitāne o Manawatu has carried in pursuing justice over so many years, and I congratulate you on reaching this milestone. Lesser people would have said, it's all too hard, I'm giving up, I'll go back to something else, but you've hung in there and you've achieved your settlement. Mr Speaker, there are many people who've contributed to this legislation, both within the iwi and Crown agencies. Can I acknowledge the Chief Crown negotiators that I've used, Ross Phillipson and more recently Glenn Webber? Their efforts and persistence have been very helpful to me as I've come to settle this claim. And lastly, I want to acknowledge all the tupuna of Rangitāne o Manawatu who began the search for justice once land acquisitions began in the 1850s, as it is many of their descendants who have driven the claims process in the modern era. There are so many people to acknowledge, but it is appropriate in the third reading debate to acknowledge those who have contributed. Their names deserve to be written into the permanent record of Parliament. The loss Rangitāne o Manawatu suffered can never be fully compensated by the Crown, and much of what was lost simply cannot be returned. I say that every third reading. It never makes me pleased to say it, but say it I must because it's a reality. However, the people of Rangitāne o Manawatu have graciously accepted the redress contained in their settlement, and in doing so, I acknowledge their generosity. Mr. Speaker, Rangitāne o Manawatu is an iwi that lost most of its land through extensive Crown purchases in the mid-19th century with very limited, some would say pitiful, reserves set aside. By the end of the 1880s, Rangitāne o Manawatu held approximately 20,000 acres of land, including reserves from Crown purchases that they had been awarded by the Native Land Court and land that they had repurchased in the Te Ahua Turanga block. From the 19th century, much of the remaining iwi land was partitioned by the Native Land Court and subsequently purchased by private interests. By 1930, Rangitāne o Manawatu land holdings had been reduced to a meagre 2,903 acres. What remained of the land was then eroded by further sales, and as an iwi, Rangitāne o Manawatu became virtually landless. And this has had, obviously, a severe impact on the health of the people of Rangitāne o Manawatu. Put simply, sir, the Crown failed to ensure that the iwi were left with sufficient land for their present and future needs. Over many generations, the Crown's breaches of the treaty have simply undermined the social and traditional structures of Rangitāne and compromised the autonomy and ability of the iwi to exercise its customary rights and responsibilities. This is such a familiar account of the past relationship between the Crown and its treaty partner. We've heard it so many times of late. As I said, we had 3 bills last week. Situations where the Crown repeatedly failed to fulfil the undertakings it made under the treaty. Every time a settlement bill comes through Parliament, the same stories of land loss, of dispossession, of economic and cultural alienation are heard. Every time it cuts deep to the core of our nation. Maori across this country had legitimate treaty grievances, and they need to be addressed. Today, the time has come for the Crown to acknowledge the errors of the past and make amends for its actions or omissions. One critical aspect of the settlement is the apology. I cannot stress enough the importance of the Crown recognising the struggles of the ancestors of Rangitāne o Manawatu in pursuit of redress and justice, and the relevance of a Crown apology to Rangitāne o Manawatu, to their ancestors and to their descendants. The apology states that by the settlement, the Crown seeks to atone for its wrongs and begin the process of healing. Not only is the Crown apology an acknowledgement of long-held grievances, but hopefully it heralds the re-establishment of a partnership based on that mutual trust, cooperation and respect for the treaty, and it's the right thing to do. I hope the redress package and the settlement will go a long way to reconnect Rangitāne o Manawatu with its environment and to acknowledge the mana and the rangatiratanga of Rangitāne o Manawatu. The settlement will also contribute to restoring the honour of the Crown and will mark the dawn of a new era in the relationship between treaty partners. Mr. Speaker, it's been such a long journey for Rangitāne, and I'm so delighted that we have finally reached this stage. And I simply want to conclude, sir, by again paying tribute to Danielle Harris and simply say what a classy negotiator she has been. She has worked so very hard for the iwi. It has not been easy. Sometimes the attacks, we think this place is adversarial, but sometimes the attacks, the personalised attacks on negotiators can really cut to the core, but she's one tough cookie and she accepted those attacks and soldiered on. And so personally, I acknowledge you, Danielle. Thank you for your wonderful contribution to the iwi and to Manawatu, and wish you all the very best for the future. Mr. Speaker, I commend the bill to the House.